Hello, Year 3, it's Miss French here, and I'm going to be reading you Chapter 1 of our new text, Anisha Accidental Detective. Chapter 1 Disaster. No, 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 no. This is terrible. I said pink carnations. If I wanted red ones, I would have asked for red ones, yells my Auntie Bindi. She's making a right racket. Her fists are clenched and her face is turning a funny purple colour. I'm a bit worried that her head might actually erupt in a big purple slime explosion as she screams at the flower delivery man. This is already the third time she's sent the poor man back, and he looks like he's going to cry. I slump in the chair and bury my head in my book, Life, the Universe, and Everything, to try to shut out the noise. I just wish I could get some peace and quiet around here. Daz says I should be reading more appropriate books for a girl my age. I'm not sure what kind of books those are, but I like reading about time, space, and numbers. Numbers are great. They make sense, unlike people. You'd think this too if you lived with my family. The delivery man apologises like his life depends on it. I'm so sorry, madam. I just deliver the flowers. As I explained before, perhaps you should just ring the shop and tell them exactly what you want. I did tell them. It's not rocket science, is it? I want my flowers and I want them pink. Is that too much to ask? And with that, she slams the front door so hard that it bounces back and it hits her in the face. Auntie, this is just a suggestion, but maybe you should calm down. Getting stressed isn't good for your health, I say, as I watch her rubbing her nose. Mum says these kinds of helpful things to my dad all the time. He gets stressed out too. Not by flowers, but by his job as a lawyer for Bundy, Bandu and Basket LLP. I'm not sure exactly what he does, but it seems to involve going all red in the face and shouting down the phone a lot. When I grow up, I'm going to work in a lab where it's clean and quiet and I don't have to see a lot of people. That would be my number one dream job. This wedding is going to be a disaster, a first-class disaster, Auntie Bindi wails. She's been speaking all high-pitched like this ever since she started planning the wedding. The wedding of the year. The wedding that is happening tomorrow. She's marrying her sweetie pie. That's what she calls him. Ugh. His real name is Tanvir, except only his mum calls him that. Everyone else calls him by his nickname, Tony. According to the grown-ups, a wedding really is a big deal. Flowers, frilly dresses, and a ridiculously large cake with little people on top and expensive crystals round the edges. It all seems totally unnecessary to me. For their honeymoon, they go into this resort in Spain, which was the world's biggest theme park. Is it me, or is that a weird place to go on your honeymoon? Uncle Tony loves it though. Theme parks are his favourite thing, as well as music by an old rock and roll star I'd never heard of, Elvis Presley. And his favourite person in the whole wide world is of course my Auntie Bindi. She loves what he loves. They are so cringe when they're together. But the worst thing about this wedding is that Auntie Bindi decided I should be a bridesmaid and I have to wear the most awful lenga, which is made up of bright orange embroidered top with an itchy gold frill on the sleeves and a neckline and a floor-length skirt in the same colour. Now, I love Auntie Bindi. Out of my whole ridiculously big family, she is my favourite aunt and she does make me laugh. She used to look after me a lot when I was little, 'cause she lives with us. And even though she can be a bit much sometimes, we've always been so close, and even though we're so different. Auntie Bindi is really kind-hearted, and she would do anything for anyone, especially me. I would do mostly anything for her, but when it comes to itchy bridesmaid lengas, I'd really rather wear a lab coat. Mum said I'd better not suggest that to my auntie though, especially with how crazy all this wedding stuff is making her. You know what? I'll ring Tony. He'll calm me down. He always knows what to say, she witters as she taps on her phone with her sparkly false nails. Auntie Bindi loves things that sparkle. She has sparkly bags, sparkly clothes. She's even been talking about getting a sparkly pink car. I've told her I will not be getting in it with her. I take a deep breath and try to get back into my book, but the quiet doesn't last very long. Humph! He's not even answering. What else could he possibly have to do that's more important than speaking to me? She whines, running her sparkly nails through her big hair. I'm not sure what the right answer is to that question, so I keep my mouth firmly shut. Auntie Bindi is not usually this whiny. She can be squawky, for sure, but this is next level annoying. She has barely stopped for breath. Do you realise the wedding is tomorrow? I'm having my Mendy. See footnote. So what that means, I'm just going to stop here, is there's an asterisk and then it explains what that is. So a Mendy. The first time I saw Mendy, I think I was about 4 or 5 years old, and I thought it was a tube of Mum's fancy hand cream. I squeezed a load onto my hands and was a bit puzzled when they turned a greeny black colour. So not wanting to get in trouble for having mucky hands, I wiped them on Mum and Dad's new white cotton bedspread. Mum later explained that Mendy is basically a dye that is used to colour hair or decorate hands and feet with swirly patterns on special occasions. How was I supposed to know? The writing on the label was in Hindi. So I'll just go back again. Do you realise the wedding is tomorrow? I'm having my Mendy done at lunchtime today, and I've got a huge zit on my nose and now probably a big bruise as well. All the relatives are arriving any minute, and the florist can't even get the garlands right. She pauses dramatically for effect and flops onto our green corduroy sofa with the back of her hand to her head like she's about to faint. Auntie Bindi really likes to be dramatic. I firmly believe that she sometimes thinks she's in a Bollywood movie. This one time she got really upset because she and Uncle Tony had had an argument, so she sat by the window sobbing and singing Teri Beena Zindagi, which is a really old Indian love song, at the top of her voice. She was so loud and out of tune that the neighbours complained. Well, mostly Mr. Bogger, from number 62. He's always complaining about something. I had to admit, though, on this occasion, the singing was pretty bad. I put my headphones on with earmuffs over the top, and I could still hear her. Having relatives living with you can be hard work. Right now, I really want to ask Auntie Bindi how the big zit on her nose affects her having her Mendy done on her hands and feet, but maybe it's not the right time for questions. Then I think maybe she's starting a new trend. Nose Mendy. You know, nose Mendy could really take off. In fact, what's she complaining about? It could actually cover up the planet-sized spot that is emerging on her nose. It looks a little like Saturn, or maybe Mars, and it's getting redder by the minute. Mendy is a bit swirly-twirly for me. I prefer angles, but I'm guessing that Mendy squares might look a bit odd. I'm sure it will look nice on Auntie Bindi, though, as she's a swirly-twirly kind of person. Actually, if Auntie Bindi does have Mendy on her nose, it might draw attention away from my horrid orange and gold lenga. Nose Mendy plus all eyes on Auntie Bindi equals higher probability of me not being the joke of the wedding. Result. I think about telling Auntie Bindi about my analysis of the situation, but instead I say, I'm sure it will all work out in the end. This is something else my mum says a lot, mostly when everything is going wrong. Mum likes to see the positive in every situation. She says when she was growing up, everyone was much more chilled out. It all sounds very inefficient. I like things to be organised and neat. It's kind of my thing. My family are so messy and noisy that sometimes I think I must have been adopted or beamed down by aliens. Just then my earlier wish is granted and Mum comes down the stairs. What is all the noise about? Is everything okay, Bindi? She calls out. It's fine, Mum, I shout back, rolling my eyes. It is not fine. It's all a disaster, Dee Dee. And then there's another asterisk. So, Auntie Bindi calls my mum Dee Dee, which is weird because her name is actually Bhavana. But they tell me Dee Dee is the Hindi word for sister. My Hindi is not great. I only know the bad words that Granny taught me. In our house, Mum and Dad speak mainly English, and so do most of my relatives, apart from a few. Oh, I've lost where I am, sorry. Apart from a few Gujarati or Punjabi words thrown in, depending on which side of the family they're on. Granny speaks mainly Hindi because when she was brought up in Mumbai in India and when she was growing up, she loved all of the old Bollywood movies. Dad can speak Hindi, Gujarati and Punjabi, but pretends he can't understand, especially when Granny is telling him off. Mum calls it selective hearing. Anyway, some of our family call Granny by a different word, ba, which is Gujarati for Granny, but I've always just called her Granny. Auntie Bindi grabs my mum and starts to cry noisily into her shoulder. Why do Indian weddings have to take so long? They don't just last one day, they go on for a whole week. Yesterday there was a ceremony in the house with a priest and lots of singing. Mum had to paint Auntie Bindi with turmeric on her face and arms and legs. She looked like a big yellow monster. Granny said it's supposed to be a special blessing, and also it's good for your skin. Well, they're never doing that to me, not that I'm ever getting married. Today is the Mendy party, so the marquee will be filled with family again. Not just a few relatives either. Mum said we're expecting 100 guests. I didn't know that we were related to that many people, but Mum said her and Auntie Bindi's side of the family is really big. I looked through the patio doors at the end of our living room, into the marquee and out to the garden beyond. Right at the bottom behind the hedge is Granny's greenhouse. No matter how packed the house and the marquee get, no one will ever go near it. No one is ever allowed to enter the greenhouse. There, we can't have the bride crying, can we? Mum says, stroking Bindi's hair while pushing a tissue towards her. She's good at this making it better thing. I guess she's had a lot of practice growing up with Auntie Bindi as her little sister. I can't imagine having a little brother or sister. It might have been nice to have someone to share theories and do experiments with, but the probability they would like me is quite low. Not many people are. I shuffle in the armchair and slide down as far as I can without falling to the floor. I am not good at this emotional stuff. Plus it makes me feel all itchy and uncomfortable. Plus no one listens to what I think anyway. Grown-ups like to ruffle your hair and comment on how much you've grown, but they don't really care what you think about important stuff. They just want you to stay quiet and behave. When actually, I wish they would just stay quiet and behave. Just then, the house phone rings on the sideboard behind me. I jump up out of my comfy chair to answer it, glad to have a distraction from Auntie Bindi's sobbing. "Hello," I say quickly. "Who is that?" asks the gruff, heavily accented voice. I recognise it straight away. It's Uncle Tony's brother Vikram. Everyone calls him Ricky for short. "It's me," I answer. "Who's me?" Uncle Ricky asks. "Uncle Ricky, it's Anisha," I say, getting annoyed. "Ah, Annie, it's me, Uncle Ricky. Can I speak to you, Mum?" he says. "Hang on," I sigh and hold the phone out for Mum to take. I hate being called Annie, though the grown-ups in my family seem to think it's cute. Yuck. Mum reaches for the phone with her free hand, while Bindi remains attached to her other arm. "Yes, hello? Oh, Ricky, how are you? Okay, well, that sounds interesting, but I'm not sure it's appropriate. Well, I don't think, but don't you think, okay? All right, I'll speak to you later." And with that she hangs up the phone, still frowning from her conversation. "What did Uncle Ricky want?" I asked suspiciously. Ricky never calls unless he wants something. I think Uncle Tony gets a bit fed up with him sometimes, but why would he call Mum? "Nothing to worry about, just boring wedding stuff." Mum smiles brightly. A little too brightly, not answering my question at all. Bindi doesn't notice any of this and continues sniffling into Mum's shoulder. I have to get out of here, even if it's just for a bit. I jump up and say, "I'm just going to Milo's." Mum waves her free hand and says, "Don't be long, Annie. Remember the Mendy party is starting in a little while. People will be arriving soon." "Yes, Mum," I answer, even though I can't think of anything worse than a house full of people and having to talk to them for hours about swirly-twirly Mendy. I grab my backpack and head for the front door. When I enter the hallway, I notice an envelope sticking halfway through the letterbox. Did the postman come already? Mum's always moaning that he's late. She'll be pleased he's been early for once. I bend down and grab the envelope. There's no stamp on it, and on the front someone's scrawled, "To the bride." I turn the envelope over and the flap slides open, revealing part of the letter inside. One word jumps out at me. Kidnapped. My hands are shaking now. I quickly open the front door and look around. The street outside is empty. I shut the door and look at the half-opened envelope. What do I do? Without really thinking, I pull the note out to read it. The paper is thick and looks expensive. Don't ask me why, but I smell it. It has a sharp odour. It's really familiar, but I can't think what it is. I read it again to make sure I haven't misunderstood. Someone has kidnapped Uncle Tony on the day before the wedding. Is this a joke? Who would joke about something like that? The letter reads, "To Bindi, we have kidnapped Tony. If you ever want to see him again, Call off the wedding. You have until 7 p.m. tonight or else. From the kidnapper. I peek back in the living room at Auntie Bindi, who is still blowing her nose. How much snot does she have in there? And Mum, who is still trying to reassure her that the wedding isn't cursed and that her zit doesn't look that bad. I realise that if I go in there now and show them this note, it will be like a volcano erupting. So I decide there and then to keep it to myself until I can make sense of it. It could just be a joke, although it's not really that funny, but it sounds real. Kidnap? A shiver runs down my spine. I'm not sure what to do. Why would anyone want to kidnap Uncle Tony? But wait, there's usually a logical reason for most things that happen. There must be a logical explanation for this note. I just need to work out what it is. I need my best friend. Milo will know what to do. And that's how I end up running like lightning down the road to number 58.